Hello boys and girls, and how are you today? Do you remember yesterday we were talking about blackbirds? Can anybody remember the other bird that was mentioned at the end of the nursery rhyme? That's right, Jenny Wren. Today we're going to talk about the wren. The wren is a little bird who might live in your garden. They're one of the smallest birds in Ireland, and they hop around poking their nose into crevices and crannies looking for food. They like to live in sheltered shrubs and bushes. I've never seen one in my garden, but sometimes if you're lucky enough, you might see one in yours. They are brown with a little brown beak and tiny little beady black eyes, and their tails pop up in the air as they move. Now let's sing a song of sixpence again, and let's find the wren. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing, "Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king?" The king was in his counting house counting out his money. The queen was in the parlour eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose. Down came Jenny Wren and popped it on again. So, do you remember our tongue twister, Willoughby Wallaby? Would you like to say it after me first, and then we'll try it together? I want to be a wallaby. A wallaby like Willoughby. When will I be a wallaby? Like Willoughby the wallaby. Now say it with me. I want to be a wallaby like Willoughby. When will I be a wallaby like Willoughby the wallaby? Now boys and girls, do you remember we met 2 new characters yesterday? You do? Well, they've come to say hello again today. Diagwit! 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 Diagwit Nuala, Diagwit Colm. Conas atá tú Nuala? Tá mé go maith. Conas atá tú Colm? Tá mé go maith. Conas atá tú Colm? Tá mé go maith. Conas atá tú Nuala? Tá mé go maith. Conas atá tú? Tá mé ag dul inis. Slán! Today's story I'm going to tell you myself. It's a very famous old story, and it's called The King of the Birds. One day all the birds of the forest gathered together, and they were arguing. They were arguing over who was the greatest of all the birds. The owl said, "I am the greatest of all the birds because I am the wisest." "I am the greatest of all the birds," said the thrush, "because I can sing most sweetly." "I am the greatest of all the birds," said the magpie, "because I can find things." "I am the greatest of all the birds," said the falcon, "because I can fly so high and swoop so low." "I am the greatest of all the birds," said the skylark, "because I can soar into the sky." "I am the greatest of all the birds," said the eagle, "because I am the biggest, the bravest, and the most impressive." And all the other birds looked at him and thought, maybe he's right. So the owl said, "Let us have a competition to see who indeed is the greatest of all the birds. We will see who can fly highest in the sky." Now this made some of the birds very happy, because they knew they were very good at flying high. The skylark was delighted because she could soar up into the clouds. The falcon was delighted because he could soar above the mountains. But the eagle was convinced that he would win because he could fly higher and longer than any of the other birds. The smaller garden birds were hopping around and feeling very disappointed because they knew they couldn't compete with these other birds. And the little wren hopped out and thought to himself, I would love to be king of the birds. I wonder if there's a way that I could do it. And he thought and he thought and he thought. So all the birds went to the agreed spot for the competition. It was an open field with no trees nearby, so nobody could get a head start. So on the owl's hoot, they all flew. Hoot-woo! And off they took. First the skylark soared into the air and kept soaring and singing her beautiful song. The song thrush tried but couldn't get half as high as the skylark. Then the falcon soared into the sky, way up to the clouds, and could survey the countryside below him. He saw all the smaller birds beneath him, and he thought to himself, I'm surely going to win this competition. But just then he felt the flutter of wings nearby, and he looked to see the eagle soaring above him, going higher and higher, and the falcon tried to keep up, but he wasn't able. Eventually he had to admit he had flown as far and as high as he could, and he could not meet the height that the eagle had climbed. The eagle flew and flew until he was above the clouds, and all he could see was a blanket of clouds beneath him, and he thought to himself, yes, truly I am the king of the birds. I will go back down now to claim my title and my crown. And he flew back down to the earth and landed gracefully, and all the other birds cheered and clapped their wings. And then suddenly they stopped. The eagle looked around and he said, Are you so amazed at the sight of me, the king of the birds? Oh no, said the owl. We are amazed at the bird who is truly king of the birds. What do you mean, said the eagle. Well, said the owl, you have had a passenger on your back on your journey up into the clouds. And the eagle looked around, but he couldn't see anything because he couldn't turn his head far enough. Who's there? Who's there? He said. And off his shoulders hopped the little wren. And the little wren said, It is I, O mighty eagle. I hopped on your back, and you took me even higher than yourself when you soared into the clouds. So surely I must be the king of the birds, because I have flown higher than you. Well, all the other birds were amazed at the nerve of the little wren for his bravery and his intelligence, and they said, Surely this must be the king of the birds. He deserves the crown. And the eagle was furious and he said, This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And he stopped off in a terrible temper. In the meantime, all the other birds chattered and twittered around the little wren, and they made a beautiful crown of daisies for the wren's head. And they said, From this day on, you shall be known as king of the birds. I hope you liked that story. I've always liked that story because it proves that you don't have to be big and strong to win. Sometimes you can be small and clever and you can do just as well, and maybe even better.